This is a brand new Audi A1, but for the same money that this would cost you, if you'd be willing to go for a used car instead, you could have something a little bit more fun, like this S3, or maybe this S4, or how about a rather luxurious and practical A6 Avant, or a big, even more practical Q7, or a super luxurious A8. These cars all cost the same money as that A1, as does this, an old Audi R8. It's mind-boggling. Now in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what each of these cars are like for the money that you pay for them. Anyway, let's get on with it because we've got a beautiful British summer's day to enjoy. Buy, sell, car, wow. Let's start off with the new car. It's the Audi A1 and it's the baby of the Audi range. So this is a 30 TFSI S-Line. Now, the base price of this is £28,000, but it has a few choice options on it, such as the snazzy paint, the contrasting roof, an upgraded stereo, and some other options which you're probably going to want on this car. And it takes the total price, new for this, up to £32,000. It's a good looking car, and it's a small car. It's the smallest Audi you can get. Let's check it out inside. Here on the inside, this A1 has that wonderful new car smell. Ah, the freshness. No one else has sat in here and had their scent permeate into the upholstery. Also, everything is brand new. There's no wear on the steering wheel. No one else has touched the handle. There's no squeaks or rattles. It's fresh from the factory. Gives you a great feeling. And you know what? This A1 feels pretty good quality. So squidgy materials here, nice steering wheel, the seats are good as well, shiny bits of trim. Though it is the entry to the Audi range, so some of the materials do feel a little bit cheaper. Also, we're lucky we've got some of those packs added to this car because it means that you get parking sensors which you don't get as standard, and some other bits and pieces like a lovely Sonos stereo. So it feels good. Feels like quite a big car for a small car, but then it is quite expensive, isn't it? You know, £32,000 for an entry-level Audi. In the back, it's not cramped, you know, I'm an adult sometimes, and I've got just about enough knee room and enough headroom. It's fine. Though if you need to carry three in the back at once, it would be cramped. You know, it's not a big car, but it doesn't feel like a really small car either. Same applies to the boot. It's not massive, 335 litres, but it's adequate. One thing about this A1 is that while it costs over £30,000, it's got quite a small engine, 1 litre, 3-cylinder, 110 horsepower. So you don't get a lot of performance for your money. And I'll show you how quick it is now. Got my specialist timing gear. I'm going to launch it from 0 to 60. .77 seconds. It's okay. Actually, when you're in gear, there's enough punch from this engine, like for just driving around town and for keeping up with traffic on the motorway. But you're definitely still driving a small car. You can tell it's the baby of the Audi range in terms of the noise level and the comfort from the suspension. Compared to its alternatives for similar money from similar manufacturers, it stands up pretty well. But how will it stand up to a used car for similar money? It's madness to think that for the same price pretty much as that A1U, you can have a used Audi S3. This one, it has 57,000 miles on the clock. It's from 2017 and it'll cost you about £25,000. However, here's one on CarWow which is available used, Audi approved, so it's got some warranty with it. That has 20,000 miles. It's a 2019 car. And that's about £30,000. So very similar to that A1. Yet the performance is on another level. For starters, I've got a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine with 310 horsepower. I've got a 7-speed automatic gearbox with launch control. I've got quattro all-wheel drive, which is handy in weather like this. And this is what it means. You have a car that can go from 0 to 60 this quick. 4.31 seconds. That's less than half the time of the A1 for a car that's similar price. And you know, this may be older and have done a lot more miles, but it still feels remarkably new to drive. In fact, the way it goes over bumps feels newer because it's a more sophisticated chassis. You've got independent rear suspension on this car. On the A1, it's got a torsion beam setup, or the two rear wheels are sort of connected by a metal bar, and as a result, it doesn't smooth over bumps as well. This one has sports suspension as well, which is slightly stiffer, uprated dampers over the standard A3, and as a result, it just feels more expensive to drive. It helps that you've got an automatic gearbox. It's more luxurious. You don't have to bother changing gears. It'll do it for you, unless you want to, and then you can do it with the pedals. Now, obviously, we're just talking about the price of the cars to buy. With that A1, you're going to pay less insurance. It's going to cost less in terms of fuel. Also, you don't have to worry about things going wrong because it's got a 3-year manufacturer warranty. But that S3 I showed you on CarWow, that's Audi approved used, so it comes with some warranty. It's very, very interesting, isn't it? I know where my money would go so far. The A3 also looks like a more substantial car than the A1, especially as it's the S3 for this price. You know, you've got the sportier alloy wheels, you've got extended side sills, and even though this is the previous generation model, it still looks modern, still looks nice. You wouldn't believe that it's actually less expensive than that A1 for this particular version. Lovely weather. Do you know what? I also prefer the design of the dash in this previous generation version of the A3 as well. Look at this. Now that's old school, and you can control it with the swivel wheel. Oh, it's not touchscreen. You don't get digital dials though. Though being the S3, we've got some sporty dials with Boost written on them. That's good. And overall, you know, because it's the S3, we've got the sporty seats. We've actually got an armrest like we haven't got in that A1. And it does just generally feel like a much nicer place. And despite the mileage and the fact that it's not brand new, it doesn't seem overly worn. Maybe a little bit shiny on the gear selector. And the smell? It's not a new car smell, but it's not an unpleasant smell. This S3 also feels bigger in the back than the A1. There's noticeably more knee room. Headroom's a little bit better as well, and if you needed to carry 3 in the back at once, it'd be slightly less of a squeeze than the A1. When it comes to luggage space though, there isn't a huge amount in it. The luggage capacity of this is 340 litres. However, there is one major improvement in this car, and it's the quality. It just feels noticeably more expensive here in the back seats. Interestingly, you've got softish materials here on the window ledges in the rear. In the very latest version of the A3, it's like Audi have cut some costs because it doesn't feel quite so expensive in the back as this older generation car. Now, instead of a really low mileage version of the Audi S3 I just showed you, you could have one of these for similar money. It's an S4. This one is a 2018 car with 32,000 miles on the clock, and the price of this, £31,000. So £1,000 less than that A1. Obviously, it is 5 years old. It's not brand new, but it looks brand new. I really like the look of this car, and especially with the black paint and the shiny alloy wheels. And of course, the red brake calipers really stand out and make it look sporty. Gotta say, this car feels like a different league on the inside compared to the other two, especially with this red leather. Also, the whole design of the dash is just more grown up, more expensive feeling, and all the materials just feel more solid. Once again though, there is a little bit of wear on the gear selector and on the steering wheel because it is a used car, and you don't have that new car smell just like in the S3. But we've got so much kit on it. I've got heated seats, I've got 3-zone climate control. It even says it there. I like the way you've got the actual temperature gauge in those dials. This is a pre-facelift A4, so you've got the older infotainment system. And like on that S3 I showed you, you have to control it using this wheel rather than being a touchscreen. But you still have a very modern feeling digital driver's display, which is pretty much identical to on the very latest Audis. And it's all very easy to use through buttons on the steering wheel. Speaking of which, you've got a sporty S flat bottom steering wheel. All very, very nice. I'm erring on the side of this car so far, especially as I can feel these seats actually slightly massaging my back. You don't get that in an A1. However, what you also don't get in a brand new Audi A1 is a slight scratch on the dash, some odd staining on this part of the dash, and a smell that definitely isn't new. It's not bad, but it's a little bit lived in. Thing is though, does the S4's engine still feel fresh? It's a 3-litre turbocharged V6 with 354 horsepower, and it drives all 4 wheels by an 8-speed automatic gearbox. I'm going to launch it and time it using my specialist timing gear. See what it does to 60. Takes off well. Whoa, really brutal gear changes. 0 to 60 in 4.39 seconds. So pretty much identical to the S3. Though this does feel a slightly quicker car overall when you're in gear. Maybe that's to do with the sound from the engine. It just sounds more exquisite because you've got 2 extra cylinders. It's madness, like the price of this really, when you compare it to the new A1. And to drive, it's just so much more sophisticated and a leap on from the S3 as well. Just in terms of the quietness, there's less wind noise, less tyre noise. You can tell that the A4 is the more senior car. Also, the way it goes up the road with its more sophisticated suspension, you do feel like you've got something more substantial. However, like with the S3, you're going to have issues with increased fuel costs, insurance, but you haven't got the full 3-year manufacturer warranty that you have when you get a brand new car. But is that a sacrifice you're willing to take? Well, it depends with the other benefits you get when you go for a used car such as this instead of a smaller new car. Compared to the brand new A1, this S4 feels noticeably more spacious in the back seats. Now, there's actually not much in it in terms of knee room and headroom compared to the S3. However, it does feel like a bigger car because you seem just further away from the windscreen, just a little bit more spacious, a feeling of airiness. Also, there's more of a feeling of quality back here. So that is actually quite squidgy and soft. This all feels very nice with the red stitching. Obviously you've got the red seats which really help it stand out. Then there's the boot. You've got 480 litre capacity, which is quite an increase over that S3. Though being a saloon, the actual entrance to the boot isn't quite as practical as the hatchback tailgate on the S3. But if that's an issue for you, you could always get an estate version of this car, which actually has a boot capacity of 505 litres and that practical liftback tailgate. However, if it's an estate car you're after, why not go for one of these, an A6 Avant? So this has a boot capacity of 565 litres. Look, it's absolutely massive. In terms of the price, this particular car, just under £32,000. It has a similar 30,000 miles on the clock as that S4, yet it's newer. It's a 2020 car, but there's a reason for this. I'm going to show you now with my specialist timing gear. 8.39 seconds to 60 and a little bit of traction issue away from the line. You see, this is a 2-litre diesel with 204 horsepower. It's also, surprisingly, not all-wheel drive. It's front-wheel drive, hence the loss of traction then in these slippery conditions. Would have gone a bit quicker had it been dry. And that's what's happening, you see. You know, you step up to a bigger car, a more luxurious car. If you want to keep the money the same, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And in the case of this, we've gone from a sporty engine in the S3 and the S4 to a run-of-the-mill diesel. But for just general daily driving, this car feels anything besides run-of-the-mill. It's noticeably more comfy than the S4 and especially the new A1. Part of that is because it hasn't got a sport suspension on it like the S4, but generally the A6 is a bigger car with a more sophisticated, more relaxing approach to things. The soundproofing is incredibly good on this. It is a step up over all the other cars. It's just so relaxing and quiet to travel in. Also, I can barely believe that it's got 30,000 miles on the clock. If I didn't know, I'd say this was new. No squeaks or rattles. It's really impressive when you think about it that this is the same money pretty much as that A1. Also, there's more comfort here in the back seats as well. Noticeably more knee room than the S4, the S3 and especially the A1. Also loads more headroom. The seats themselves just feel a bit deeper and more reclined and relaxing. And then we've got stitching here, like on the door tops. It's all much more premium, apart from one thing. At this price point, we don't seem to have tri-zone climate control like we had in the S4. So there are some compromises to be made. It's a similar story here in the front. You see, this particular car doesn't have the full digital dials. They're part analog, part digital. So it feels a little bit cheaper than what you get with the S4. And while this infotainment system is newer and a touchscreen, it's not the actual full-size one you can get with the A6. That would have cost extra. Doesn't quite feel the whole screen area, does it? Got a lot of bezel going on. It's the same with this lower screen down here as well, and these buttons here. Normally they're touch sensitive on higher spec versions. You know, at this price, you're making some sacrifices in terms of kit, but they're not deal breakers. And overall, the inside of the A6 just feels nicer than the A4, even the S4 with its sporty seats, because these seats are very comfortable. They don't look quite as swish, but they've still got a little S logo on them. And we've still got a flat bottom steering wheel as well. I also think that the interior of this is ever so slightly less worn, and I can't see any obvious scratches or marks on the dash. In terms of the smell, could almost be new. I guess it just depends who had the car before you. Actually, you can guess the type of person who will have had an Audi Q7 before. It's going to be someone with kids. That's why they need the 7 seats. And it's got a strange smell about it. It's a fruity smell. I think it's an air freshener, but I believe it's probably been deployed to remove the smell of children. And let's be honest about this. This Audi Q7 is the kind of car that you expect to see on the school run, if the school is a private school. It's a good looking car for a big practical SUV, and it's actually pretty decent value. It's a 2019 with 20,000 miles and it's £39,000, so a little bit more expensive than the new A1. However, here's one on CarWow, which is a 2017 car with getting on for 60,000 miles, and it's just under £30,000. In terms of value for money, this Q7 is really where it's at. It's insane to think that you can have one of these for similar money to a new A1, but you've got seats in the middle row that slide and recline. They're very spacious as well. They're individual chairs, so you can carry 3 people in this middle row at once. Got ISOFIX on all of them, so it's great for baby seats. Yeah, it's just so spacious. In fact, you know what? Look at that. You can go for miles like this. The Q7 feels like a big, spacious, well-equipped car here in the front as well, and the quality is good too. It doesn't feel quite as modern as the A6 though, just because it was originally built from an earlier date, and that's evident by the fact, look, like in the S3, we have a slightly more old-fashioned pop-up infotainment screen, but like the A6, you have those kind of weird semi-digital dials. Though I think that you could get versions of this car of this age with a fully digital display. Nowadays though, I think as standard you get full digital display if you go for the new car. It's funny though, isn't it, that the A1 has slightly better kit than this Q7. That particular car on CarWow has the same 3-litre V6 turbo diesel with 218 horsepower, 8-speed automatic gearbox and all-wheel drive as this particular car, so performance will be the same, and we'll see what it is now. Diesels don't like to rev as much as petrols, but progress is adequate. 0 to 60, 7.8 seconds. Noticeably quicker, despite this car's larger size than that new A1. If you're going used, you're getting so much car for the money. You know, this big SUV that feels like tank-like, yet is also luxurious and comfortable. I mean, it's so good. To be fair, this Q7 is the best car in its class, and they seem to cope well when you put miles on them. This 21,000 miles, a bit like the A6, you wouldn't know it wasn't new, but to drive, absolutely solid as a rock. Smooth, relaxing, easy. I prefer the A6 ever so slightly to drive, but this is still lovely, and a lot of people would rather have this car because of the raised driving position and the fact you get a better view out over traffic, and you get to look down on other drivers, probably those in an A1. Now, if it's technology you're after though, you need to go straight to the top of the Audi range and get yourself an A8. This particular car is the long wheelbase version, and it's got 37,000 miles on it, and it's up for £37,000. However, I found one on CarWow, similar age, 2018, with 50,000 miles on, and that one's £30,000. So less money than that A1 with options. Interior wise, the two cars are the same, and being the A8, you've got the nicest materials of all the cars that we've seen so far. It really is quite nice with the electric seats, the air vents that disappear when you turn the car off, and it just has a feeling of luxury about it, and that extends to the way it drives. This car has the same engine as that one that's available on CarWow with the standard wheelbase. It's a 3-litre turbocharged V6 diesel with 286 horsepower. You've got all-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic gearbox. And I'm going to launch it to see how quick it is. It's even got launch control. That's crazy, I wasn't expecting that. 5.95 seconds. That was effortless. It didn't feel that quick because this car is just so well isolated. You might notice that it's just a bit quieter. You can't hear any road noise. There's hardly any wind noise. As you go up through the range, you notice the car's getting more and more luxurious from the A1 all the way up to the Q7. But then the step to the A8 is quite large. There's a big gap between the Q7 and this one in terms of luxury. Also, this car comes with stuff like this, look. An electrically operated steering column as standard. I mean, that just oozes luxury. So does the fact that you get air suspension as standard. And as a result, the way this thing goes over bumps, once again, is a huge jump from the Q7 to this. Incredible to think that you can have one of these, similar money to that new A1, although of course, 50,000 miles and it's 5 years old. And the fact of the matter is that at some point you're going to need to replace the brakes. Something might go wrong on it, and the older the car is and the more miles it's done, the more likely that something will go wrong. And when you're dealing with a car such as this with loads of tech on it, fixes can be quite expensive. That said, when it is all working perfectly fine, it really does feel super luxurious. This A8 is the most luxurious in the back seats as well. They're really, really comfortable. And being the long wheelbase version, there's loads of knee room. Now, if it was the normal wheelbase version, I'd probably have about that much knee room. So about the same as the Q7. What's smaller than the Q7 is the boot capacity. It's 510 litres compared to 770 on the Q7. But overall, it does just feel more expensive here in the back. Blind. We come to the final car, and it may seem a bit odd. You're not going to be cross-shopping a brand new Audi A1 with a 16-year-old Audi R8, but you can get one of these for the same money as the A1. £32,000 for a car like this with 60,000 miles on it. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Here on the inside, this R8 does feel 16 years old. The instrument dials, just the shape of them, the fact that you've got like digital displays like an old Casio digital watch. Then there's the infotainment system, which is very, very old-fashioned. Bit tricky to use and rather unresponsive. Because it's got 60,000 miles on it, you got some more wear. The steering wheel is a bit shiny. There's lots of scratches over the gear selector. Now this is a manual. They actually fetch a premium over the automatic versions. These are about £3,000 or £4,000 more. So if you want to spend £32,000, you're probably going to have to go for an automatic rather than a manual. In terms of practicality, you don't get much because the engine is behind you and the only real storage space is underneath the bonnet. There's 100 litres. That's all. Look, that's how old it is. You've got a cigarette lighter and an ashtray. You don't get these in cars anymore. Think about this car. It may be old, but it's got the best engine. A 4.2 litre naturally aspirated V8 with 420 horsepower. We've also got all-wheel drive. Clearly this is going to be the quickest car of the lot, right? Let's time it and find out. The thing is, I want to be kind of gentle with this car because it's old and it's very expensive to repair. Replacing a clutch would be very costly. It's like aquaplaning. 5.17 seconds. On the brakes, it's all over the place in this plumbing washout of a runway. 5.17. Thankfully, it's quicker than the A8, but it's not as quick as the S3 nor the S4. If it wasn't so wet, I'd have got a slightly better start, but Audi quote 0 to 60. 4.6 seconds. So considering the conditions, that wasn't too bad. But I'll tell you this, compared to all the other cars, it's definitely got more drama. Just changing gears with this open gate is incredible. The noise from the engine is like none of the other cars I've driven so far. But the biggest difference with this R8 is that it's just way more fun. Oh, why would you want a brand new Audi A1 when you could have this 16-year-old R8 and all the maintenance and insurance costs that come with it? I think I've answered my own question. In all seriousness, this video was just a bit of fun to show you what you could get for that budget of a new A1. And I think if you're shopping for a new car, you're very unlikely to go for something like this, but you might go for a nearly new car, and it is possible to get something slightly more substantial for similar money if you're willing to forego the fact of having a brand new car and picking it the exact spec that you want it. For me, the car that I thought was the best value overall was the A6 Avant. It's incredible to think that you can get one of those, not all that old, for around £32,000. Sometimes depreciation can be your friend, so long as you're buying used. Anyway, I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you did, give it a like. Click on those windows there for some more videos, and on that box there to go to CarWow now to change your car the easy way. Thanks for watching.